Well, then let's jump on over to our main topic tonight, which is reviewing the theatrical slash HBO exclusive Judas and the Black Messiah. Like I said, you can watch this in theaters where theaters are open, or you can stream it on HBO Max for no additional cost. This was written and directed by either know Chaka King. Chaka King, and then also written by Will Burson.
All right. Let's get into it.
It stars Lakeith Stanfield, Daniel Kaluuya, Jesse Plemons, and Dominique Fishback.
Who is in another movie where she talks about poetry.
I see a thread. Go ahead and what are your guys' initial kind of Twitter length thoughts?
I kind of have two quick thoughts, I guess.
Go for it.
The first one being, this movie was fantastic. So incredibly made in every area. Acting, writing, directing, cinematography, music, everything.
I'm feeling a butt.
No. The second thing is, how have I never heard about this story before?
Oh.
I've never heard of this before. And it just kind of...
Weird. As three white guys in the United States of America, we don't know a story about a political figure in Black history. Weird.
Yeah, you think...
Weird.
You think such a major event in a civil rights movement would be taught in American history. But and the only thing you ever learn about is Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Yep.
They don't even teach us about Malcolm X. I learned more about From One Night in Miami, which is a fictional telling of that character meeting with other characters, but based on the real person. And I learned more about him in that movie than I ever knew about.
You should watch Malcolm X.
I also haven't seen Malcolm X with Denzel Washington.
I was
probably on that part's on me. But still, I feel like I should know about these things.
Yeah.
That's the second point.
I'll just read my impression that I wrote down after watching the movie. I wrote, a timepiece that is as relevant today as its subject matter was all those years ago. Anchored by powerful performances and visceral direction, Judas and the Black Messiah brings a relevant piece of Black history to 2021 and beyond.
Yep.
This movie hits, man. It's heartbreaking. It's powerful. And I will admit, I actually was talking to somebody about this today. My understanding of what the Black Panther Party was, as I was taught it growing up, is not what the Black Panther Party was. And seeing this movie wrecked me. I was like, man, I was taught wrong. I was taught wrong in school. I was told all the wrong things. And while they did have their problems, while they were a flawed group, their intentions were good.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to recognize. And I don't think Chaka King shies away from that. He's like, look, these people, they had good intentions. They're trying to do the right thing. So doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't glorify that. Like, this movie is just like, no, this is it. This is what it was.
Yep.
And that's why I used the term visceral, because it's real. Like, this is what it was. They weren't doing the right thing all the time, and that's important to remember. But they really did try to better their situation in a way that didn't always resort to violence, which is what we were taught growing up. It's just sad, man. It kind of piggybacks on what Luke's saying. Like, we weren't taught all these things. But I'm glad we live in a time now where they can be brought to the forefront and we can learn them now and kind of, moving forward, instill that knowledge on our families, on our friends, as we go forward. And this is a movie, I think, 15, 20 years from now, it's a movie I think that will resonate again. And I hope it does. Not You know what I mean?
Not for the same reasons it resonates today, because I think when we look at
Yeah.
this movie today, we feel that struggle that is still going on, unfortunately. But I think you're right, Tyler. It'll resonate in a way that great films do, that tell us something about the world we live in, and
Yeah.
I think it'll still be recognized as a.
Yeah.
I hope so. My quick little Twitter reaction is just a GIF of Jesse Plemons.
Jesse
Jesse
Plemons.
Plemons saying, "I remember thinking to myself, this guy deserves an Academy Award, except about the entire cast."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the
Yes.
acting in this movie is so good. I think that some of the writing is phenomenal, and some of the writing is obviously not quite as good. Because that other stuff, like, honestly, I think the stuff with Fred Hampton and Daniel Kaluuya is just god tier, above anything else I've seen recently. And then and maybe unfortunately or not unfortunately, he's a secondary character, so the majority of the stuff does go to Lakeith Stanfield, who is a great actor in and of himself, and I think plays this role amazingly. But I just don't think he was given quite as much to work with of a script.
I think part of that is, though, Daniel Kaluuya is playing a character with all the charisma.
Oh, absolutely.
And so every scene he's in, he
steals it.
And it's like, that's kind of subject of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just the subject matter itself. But no, I would agree with you. I think Kaluuya, like, everything with him is just remarkable. It's remarkable. And then Lakeith Stanfield gets, I won't say shafted, because I do think he gets good stuff, and he does great character work in this movie. But I would agree with you. It's kind of like the Joker in The Dark Knight. Like you really just want to get to the next Kaluuya scene.
Batman's there.
Like, The Dark
but
Knight's a great movie, and everything else in it is really, really good. But you're really just counting down the minutes till you get to see Heath Ledger crush it again. And that's how this one is, I think. Like when Kaluuya, I won't spoil it.
No, you're fine. But I would agree. Luke, more thoughts?
I would agree with, I guess, kind of just with the charisma point you made about Fred Hampton, because I mean, he's giving big, powerful speeches. Whereas Bill O'Neill, he's really, and even Lakeith Stanfield, he's playing multiple people.
Yeah.
Because he's being worked by the FBI, and he's trying to get in with the Black Panthers, and doesn't really know what to do, and he's acting different around different people. But man, I thought his performance was so good, especially in the moments where he doesn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's being torn in so many directions, especially like those dinner scenes when he's just like, I'm out. Just like, ugh, man, it was really intense for me too, especially like I don't know how much I say with spoilers, but just like when you have the raid at Hampton's house in the middle with like the fire. And he's like, I'm going to the roof. I was like, what is gonna happen here? Like, what decision would you make in this scene? Because he's just trying to survive.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
He believes in what they're doing too. So it's like being pulled in all these directions, and I thought he played so well.
Yep.
And I wrote myself a note to talk about that. So I wanted to talk about Bill O'Neill and just his story, and just how it goes back to the root problem of the Chicago Police Department and and the FBI and what they were doing. But Bill O'Neill's story, and if you miss this, you're missing a lot. But his story is so heartbreaking to me. You know, like, you get the interview at the end, like the actual interview with him, and he says, "What would you tell your kids?" And he's like, I'd tell him I was part of the struggle. And like that, when that's said at the end of the movie, that should be at the beginning. To me, if that's at the beginning of the movie, I think your understanding of what he's going through would improve so much. But it's just heartbreaking, man. Like he messed up, he made a mistake, and then he gets looped into this double life. And like you said, Luke, he believes in the cause he's trying to take down.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad, man. Like he literally just doesn't know what to do, and he can't figure it out. And look, I can't speak for a black person, but like that's part of the black person's struggle in America is no matter what, they feel like they can't do the right thing. And it's just so sad. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
To watch him go through that, and you kind of go on that ride with him. And, I can never pretend to relate to that, but this movie does kind of make you realize like how much of a struggle it is to be black in the United States. It's tough, man. Like then, now, anytime in history, it's never been easy.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
especially when you're being asked to take down a cause you believe in, it's just again.
Yeah.
Like this movie moved me like big time. Like I was hurting last night. I didn't sleep last night. I've been up since like 4 a.m. because I just I can think about is just how sad this and how, again, Luke, you brought it up. How do we not know about this?
Yeah.
Like, how do we not know that the FBI essentially was creating a murder plot for a political figurehead for black people?
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's crazy. And I if you want to talk about it more, Tyler, please do. I just want to keep I want to keep things moving, but
no, you're good.
I don't want to feel like I'm just like moving away from it because I don't want to talk about it.
No, it's a deep movie.
It's a deep movie.
Ultimately, what I'm getting
at.
Yeah,
where I felt, and we've been talking about Lakeith and character, and I love kind of what you said about him being a survivalist, and that ultimately, like, this movie does make you feel both like incredibly frustrated with him, and also if you're in the right mindset, I think, incredibly empathetic towards his situation. If you're paying attention, if you're just sitting back and watching this and scrolling through things on your phone, you're gonna miss some of that interplay between him and the other characters that really does drive home the fact that he is a man who's torn between what he believes and what he believes he needs to do just to survive. That was really, really well done by Lakeith.
he plays that tortured character so well. He's incredible. I came upstairs last night after watching it, and I looked at Dana and I was like, if this movie's eligible for the Oscars this year, it would not shock me one bit if him and Kaluuya both win. It would not surprise me, and it would be deserved, in my opinion. And that's the first pro I wrote down. Kaluuya and Stanfield are bona fide stars. They're stars. They aren't us. They are stars. These dudes are here. They have arrived. They are incredible. When Denzel decides to retire, that's okay because these guys who are now here are good. They're great. And sign me up for anything these two dudes do moving forward. Anything. I will watch it because they are just incredible.
One of the other interesting relationships in this, or dynamics, I should say, is between Fred Hampton and Deborah Johnson, so kind of his love interest. I'm not terribly familiar with Dominique Fishback, but I thought the way she pushed Fred Hampton in this movie was really good because on one part of the film, one side of the film is Lakeith and his battle of conscience of what he believes / cares about, and then on the other hand you have Fred Hampton, Deon Kaluuya, and he comes in with this fiery passion from like moment one, and like actually over the course of the film you see his character change as well, because of his relationship with Deborah Johnson, and by the end of the film, like there's this dynamic where you're not quite sure where each character really is, and I thought that made the final, the scene before the final scene, I guess, really fraught with tension. And not that it's even shot in that with that much tension. It didn't feel like this is a tense moment when you just look at the footage, like, but because of where they're at in their mental states, it's like, ooh, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, at that moment, Lakeith is just ruptured in that final scene that you're talking about. And man, like that whole scene feels like one take to me. I know it clearly isn't, but like Lakeith's ability to maintain his continuity between shots is like really, really, really evident there, because you clearly see them cutting. Like you can see there's cuts, but like his stature, like the way he stands, his emotion, like the way he emotes is just so good in that scene. It never feels like the camera cuts off. And maybe it doesn't for him, right? Like maybe he just stays there while he's filming that whole part. Yeah. But it's just more speaks to him. But that tension you talk about is another pro I wrote down is the tension of Bill's life as it intertwines with Fred's. And the development of Fred is so interesting too, because at the beginning he's really hostile towards even his own people. Yeah. And as we work through this movie, and Dominique Fishback, who I've only seen her in Project Power.
Yeah, that's all I've seen her
in.
Her
in anything else, and she was good in that too, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of does the same thing with Jamie Foxx's character in that movie, which is kind of cool. But she gets hit the edge to come off of Fred Hampton, and Fred Hampton starts to be more. I don't want to say empathetic, because I don't think that's the right word. But he becomes more aware of his words, I think.
That's a good way of putting it.
You know what I mean? Like he tries to be, at the beginning, I feel like he's just trying to be loud and passionate.
Yeah. But
by the end, I think you see Fred Hampton has developed what his cause and his purpose is. And he starts to learn how to convey that throughout the growth of their relationship. But he never loses sight of his purpose. But I think Dominique Fishback does a good job of kind of bouncing that. His development is all through her, and I think that's really cool and really well done.
Yeah.
Did you guys know, sorry, before you move on, did you guys know Fred Hampton was only 21 years old when he was killed?
No, not before this movie.
Yeah, I learned it during the credits.
21. 21. Well, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Bill O'Neill was only 17 when he was recruited by the FBI.
Yeah. Insanity.
So, like, I think we also sometimes think about, like, these are people who have had their whole life to make these decisions, and, maybe that's why it's easier to vilify them if they're a little older and they're like, oh, like, no, they're more set in their ways. But these are people who were, I don't know, like, I remember how, I've never been that hot-headed, but I remember how, wild I was at the end of high school, early college, and it's like, yeah, like, people are passionate, and when you have that energy at that age, like, you can do great things. You can move mountains because you just got it. And it's so sad then to see bright lights like that be either turned for evil or snuffed out. Any other positives, negatives? What do we got? What else we got?
I just wrote as a pro. If you haven't gathered this from my gushing over this movie, I wrote that it's timely and it provides perspective.
Yeah.
And the providing perspective may just be for me personally, but it's just I feel so bad because I did not understand what the Black Panther Party was,
Yeah.
and I still don't understand what it was. Probably to the extent I could, but even just having this knowledge now, I feel so bad for the people who've been taught their whole lives that the Black Panthers were basically just people who tried to kill cops.
Yeah.
And those are those people who won't give this movie a chance. Because I think now more than ever we need to be willing to listen.
Yeah.
And and this movie does a good job of telling a story that we clearly have not been taught.
Yeah.
But no, it's timely, man. It's timely. It's crazy how applicable these stories are.
Yep. Yeah, and I think one of the things you're talking about, Tyler, there's the way the movie ends.
Mm-hmm.
It's like holding a mirror up to something that happened in the last couple years.
Yep.
And saying, are we any different? And the sad answer is not really. Not enough.
I thought that exact same thing.
The difference is you're looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Is that we are looking in a mirror when we watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happens that was 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Yeah, and in the context for someone who has gone through these struggles for the Black community, I think, is that they'll probably if you're Black and you have a different view on this than what I'm not trying to impose what I think this is, but please tell me. I think they'll be like, these injustices happen every day, and it's there may be something that we as me as a white man sees as like, oh man, yeah, like that's like looking in a mirror, and I can't believe that's still happening. And I think what they would say is it never stopped happening. It's not this happened in the 1970s and now it's something again is happening in 2000. It's
this is the only reason we hear about this stuff now.
Yeah, the phone.
Because people have
phones
with cameras on them.
Yep.
Yeah. Proof that the system has always been broken and that we need to do more to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I totally forgot what I was about to say. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'll remember it when
can
you
we
guys
talk
are randomly
about
talking about something.
my one negative of this movie?
Sure.
Sure.
What was going on with Martin Sheen as J. Edgar Hoover? There's one scene where J. Edgar Hoover, as the director of the FBI, has like a very weird little speech that I didn't think worked at all for me.
Is that the one about the daughter?
Yeah. And maybe it's because I am a little more aware of Hoover and how much of a terrible person he actually was, but like I guess I didn't need that extra vilification. I just wanted, like you were talking about earlier, Tyler, I just wanted to get back to the the main characters, because this was like a side story for a side character.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It felt like, how do I say this? The movie does a good job of making you recognize that the FBI was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
This just felt like they were piling on. Now, however, I do think it brings up something important, in that there are people who feel that way.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
And there are people who have those discussions with their friends, or there are parents who talk to their kids and say that that's not okay. And frankly, that's garbage.
It does come at an important time in the film, I think, because we're seeing Jesse Plemons' character, Roy,
start to turn a little
he's kind of
bit.
got the same thing that we're talking about with the other characters of like, what does he actually believe? And I guess you're right, in this moment it is a more like, it does show us a little bit more of who he actually is, or who he's decided to be.
That moment is for Roy's development.
Yeah.
Nothing else. It's just to remind Roy why he's doing what he's doing, because like you said, he's starting to believe that he's on the wrong side of history here. And that conversation, and I think Hoover is figuring that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why that scene is there. So I think it serves its purpose. I do kind of feel like to an extent it is piling on a little bit, but I
at least it was short.
Yeah, it was quick.
It wasn't too long, and
it was a reason to get Sheen in the movie.
It was really my only negative, honestly. Did you guys have any negatives?
Nope.
No.
Yeah. It's a solid, fantastic movie through and through. Unanimous on 1, 2, 3. What do you rate it? Booyah.
Booyah.
Yeah. Yeah, check it out.
This is one that I think will go down as a film that is important to watch at any age, no matter who you are. You can learn something from it if you're, you come from our parents' generation and this kind of feels maybe almost anti-American, like, no, this is part of the American story, and it's a part that you need to hear. If you're like us and you're like, what is this? Why was I not told this? Why did we not learn about this? I think it's eye-opening. And then I think to maybe the younger generation who has grown up seeing racial injustice in the world, this will be a affirmation that the fight still continues. And it's not a new fight, and it's still relevant, the story.
It's just new soldiers taking up that fight.
Yep.
Yep.
I guess like my last thought would just be, if you really enjoyed this film, to check out, if you haven't yet, watch Black Klansman.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talk about that.
It's a different tone of movie, which I think is nice, but it's a different story, like during the same era, involving
similar
the same
elements.
things. It's like, I mean, one story was Judas and the Black Messiah with the Black Panthers and the FBI, but then you have the other side, which is Black Klansman, which is a black detective and a Jewish detective invading the KKK and taking them down. There's just all these really incredible stories that I think people don't know that happened. I didn't know about the story of Black Klansman either. And it is a fantastic story as well. So I'd recommend both of those. Those are both booyahs in my mind.